Good evening and thanks very much for joining us. I'm Brittany Ramsey. The Thunder Bay District is seeing its lowest two-day case count in over 3 months today. The health unit is reporting a Sunday-Monday combined total of just 9 new cases. We haven't seen a two-day total like this since the beginning of January. The positive trend in case numbers unfortunately comes with another death, the area's 54th of the pandemic. 8 of the new cases are in the Thunder Bay area, and the remaining case comes from a First Nation community. 2 are due to close household contact, 3 are due to close contact outside the home, and 4 have unknown exposures. The total case count now sits at 2,918. 163 are still considered active. That's the lowest since February 16th. There are now 18 COVID patients being treated at the regional hospital. 8 of those patients are in intensive care. The hospital is currently about 80% full, and approximately 87% of hospital staff have received at least 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Meanwhile, in Marathon, Town Council is calling on the province to provide an urgent delivery of COVID vaccines. The beleaguered community has had multiple outbreaks and has seen 3 virus-related deaths in the past 2 weeks. Adam Riley reports.
It's not about jumping the line. It's not about getting our community vaccinated over somebody else. It's about the priorities. Marathon needs those vaccines in our arms so we can protect our hospital and protect our community.
That's the position Marathon Mayor Rick Dumas is holding following the unanimous passing of a resolution by Council Monday that is urgently requesting a delivery of 2,200 COVID-19 vaccine doses for a single mass vaccination clinic for eligible adults in Marathon. The resolution is supported by both the North of Superior Healthcare Group, which runs the Wilson Memorial Hospital, and the Marathon Family Health Team. Dumas stresses the situation in Marathon is tenuous at best, with a community of 3,300 experiencing multiple cases, plus an ongoing outbreak at Wilson Memorial.
The concern of our hospital being overwhelmed with COVID patients, and there's not availability for the regular day-to-day health issues and health needs in our community. That is our concern.
The resolution is addressed to both levels of government and the district's medical officer of health, Dr. Janet DeMille. DeMille, according to Dumas, supports the idea in principle, but is not willing to divert vaccines from our allocated supply from the province. The request comes following the announcement of a 3rd death due to COVID-19 in Marathon. As of Monday, there are 14 active cases in the community. Dumas says a similar idea of having municipalities run mass vaccination clinics is something that has been run successfully in BC, and he believes Marathon has not only the capacity but the experience to pull it off.
Let us deal with the vaccinations in our community. And I use the example of our First Nations communities. You know, they felt they were high priorities because of the remoteness, the rural, remote communities. We are the same situation. So we're saying to the government, we're rural and remote. We want to mass vaccinate our community.
Dumas is optimistic that the province will acknowledge the resolution and hopeful they will honor the request. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Ontario is reporting a 2-day total of nearly 6,000 new cases today, and the surging numbers come as the Ford government is facing increased criticism over its vaccine rollout strategy. Critics say it's time to prioritize essential workers. Colin DeMello reports.
The frustration is mounting in the cities where COVID-19 is spreading.
I think one of the reasons that we're heading into another wave of lockdowns is because of our inability to get this under control. We have to either close essential workplaces or vaccinate them. You know, you can't have both.
The province is facing increasing pressure to refocus its vaccination efforts and prioritize the people working on the front lines in essential workplaces. But the Ford government placed essential service workers at the tail end of phase 2, which means they'll be vaccinated beginning in June.
When you say the word essential worker, that's a lot of people. Okay, that's a lot of people. And obviously, you can't just flick a switch and say all essential workers are being vaccinated right now, because we don't have enough vaccines to do it.
There are 2.1 million people who the province says cannot work from home, and many work in high-risk settings where the virus has spread. Currently, the province has seen 241 active outbreaks in schools and childcare settings, 122 active outbreaks in the warehousing, shipping, distribution, and construction industries, and just 26 in the service industries, which are currently closed.
These workplace outbreaks then lead into community spread. And so the reason I'm calling for essential workers to be vaccinated is if you're a fire chief and there's a fire at a house, you're going to send the fire truck to that fire. You're not going to send it down the block. You got to put out the fire where it started, where it's spreading from.
Those who advise the government on its vaccine plan say the province is getting to essential workers.
This is happening, right? Like it is happening. I don't think a lot of it's being publicized, but it is happening. And there are essential workers that are being vaccinated now. Now, does it need to expand? Of course. Is it happening enough? No, of course not. It needs to expand massively.
Which is why some cities are asking the government to use the shutdown to reorganize its vaccine strategy and control COVID where it is out of control.
The 3 Thunder Bay pharmacies that have been approved to administer the AstraZeneca vaccine are expected to start giving the shot later this week. Shoppers Drug Mart officials say pharmacists at the Red River Road location will be ready to begin vaccinations on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. Oak Medical Pharmacy on Arthur Street can't yet provide a specific day, but also expects to start later this week. It has not yet received any doses, nor has Dawson Heights Pharmacy on Regina Avenue. The AstraZeneca vaccine could arrive in the city any day now. Health Canada has issued an advisory warning Canadians not to use face masks containing graphene, citing potential health risks. The move is impacting a local company that's been supplying graphene to mask producers. Health Canada has requested data from manufacturers to assess potential health risks. That includes Zen Graphene Solutions, which has supplied graphene-based coating for masks and filters made by a Collingwood-based company. Zen CEO Greg Fenton says those masks, which had not yet gone to market, had undergone rigorous safety testing and passed Health Canada testing requirements.
We have rigorous controls in place to ensure that we produce the highest quality material. And these other masks, now again, I'm not an expert on them, but they appear to have a very low quality substance that was basically sprinkled into the masks. And of course, then that causes issues because now you're talking about a substance that's called graphene, but it's really not graphene. So we've just unfortunately been lumped into that same category. So now it's up to us to prove why we're different, why we're safe, and that's the process we're going through right now.
Any face mask containing graphene will remain off the market until Health Canada has completed a more thorough assessment. An assault at a Southside residence yesterday afternoon left a woman in hospital with serious injuries. Thunder Bay police were dispatched to a reported weapons call at a home in the 800 block of Alberta Street near the Pacific Avenue Bridge just before 1:30. Upon arrival, officers learned that a woman had been badly injured after an altercation. Today, police confirmed she remains in hospital with injuries described as serious. Police tape blocked off the front and backyards of the residence with glass in the home's front door visibly smashed. The crime scene has now been released, but the investigation is ongoing involving the Major Crimes and Forensic Identification Units. A Thunder Bay lawyer and federal Crown prosecutor who was facing charges of assault and forcible confinement has had both counts withdrawn. The charges stem from an alleged physical dispute last August between him and an unnamed complainant. Instead, Ronald Poirier has agreed to a 12-month peace bond. A co-accused in the case, David Poirier, is scheduled to appear in court on May the 5th. Dozens of workers at the local Alston plant have been laid off after some parts were stolen from one of the company's facilities down in Mexico. Specialized wires that are used in the company's bi-level cars were stolen from the Mexican plant last month. Local union president Dominic Pasqualino says 48 employees were sent home today for a period of 2 weeks as a result of the part shortage, and more rotating layoffs could be coming as well.
This can run until May that we're talking about. So anyways, we're going to try and minimize it. There's a lot of factors we don't know. We're hoping that the wires show up. Certainly they're worth a lot more to us than anybody else, and hopefully that they'll show up somewhere. A scrap value for those wires wouldn't be anywhere near the value of them as ready to go into the cars.
The local plant currently employs just over 300 people. Thunder Bay isn't the only Alston facility that's been impacted by the theft in Mexico. 70 employees at the Quebec plant have also been sent home, with about 50 more layoffs expected there over the coming months. MP Marcus Pawlowski is set to take part in a virtual roundtable in International Falls, Minnesota tomorrow regarding the potential reopening of the Canada-U.S. border. The federal member for Thunder Bay Rainy River will join Minnesota Congressman Pete Stauber and Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Fishback for a discussion around the impact the closure has had on border communities. Stauber and Fishback are strong proponents for safely reopening the border to non-essential travelers. Pawlowski feels that by July, the benefits of reopening could outweigh the risks.
I think in the next number of months, it's going to become a lot clearer as to what we should do on the border, because there's always evidence coming in. So, for example, what I said about the evidence coming out of Israel about the really significant decrease in asymptomatic transmission, that kind of thing is going to be, I think, paramount. Because if it turns out that you've had the vaccine and you're at very, very low risk of transmitting the disease, then by all means, if you've been vaccinated, we should be allowing those people in.
The land border between Canada and the United States has been closed to non-essential travelers since March 18, 2020. The closure was recently extended through at least April 21st. The first ocean-going vessel of the year docked in Thunder Bay yesterday as the busy start to the shipping season continues. The Federal Cedar has been recognized as the first salty to arrive this spring. The vessel will be heading to Puerto Rico within the next few days, carrying a load of wheat. More than 15 vessels have already made their way through the Thunder Bay port since last week, which tops last year's season opening week. Port Authority CEO Tim Heaney says unfortunately they've had to change their traditional celebrations.
Second year running we haven't been able to present the top hat, but still like to commemorate it as its official date for the port, and we're hoping next year we can do it back in person again. This year it's going to be virtual, so we're probably going to get a wider audience than normal.
A virtual event to celebrate the opening of navigation will take place on Wednesday. Officials with the Alexander Henry Museum ship received a heartwarming flashback recently. The Real Memories of the Lakehead project has unearthed some vintage film footage of the day the iconic icebreaker was first launched here in 1958. Catalina Gillies says that story.
The Alexander Henry is an important part of Thunder Bay's history. The vessel is a former icebreaker that served on the Great Lakes for around 25 years. Officials with Real Memories of the Lakehead, who are digitizing old CKPR news film for the Thunder Bay Museum, recently released a video of the Henry's original launch from Port Arthur Shipbuilding Yard on July 18, 1958. Lakehead Transportation Museum Society President Charlie Brown had a strong reaction to the video.
Pretty neat stuff, watching it going into the water. Who would have thought 63 years later that it would still be here sitting in the harbor? We brought the ship back just a couple of years ago. People in Thunder Bay really relate to her because people who are older like myself may remember seeing her out in the harbor.
The ship is now used for tours and events, although many of those activities have been put on pause because of the pandemic. Brown remains optimistic about reopening the ship to tours this summer, and says the museum has made some additions to the Henry exhibit.
For our season opening up, we've got a whole bunch of new things that we will be doing this year. This area over here, we're actually going to be bringing in 2 Brill trolley buses that we've been working on a project for about 20 years now, so people can really relate to that as well.
Brown says the Real Memories project also has footage of the Henry working on the water and hopes to get the footage available for when public tours can return. Catalina Gillies, TBT News.
2 local ice fishermen were met with a surprise encounter this weekend when a young moose approached them and had some scary moments with thin ice. The video, which was recorded Saturday afternoon, begins with what the 2 believe was a young female attempting to make its way onto the ice, breaking through, and then eventually making its way to sturdier ground. Thunder Bay native Doug Steele and his son Owen were taken aback at the situation. The 2 have been fishing on the lake down Boreal Road off Highway 590 for years and have never had an encounter like this. He says the friendly moose actually followed the fishermen around for quite some time.
What do you want, buddy? Hey? What are you after? Hey? What are you after? I'm not a moose. I'm a person.
Steele says the young moose stayed for an hour and a half despite their frantic runs between lines, hoping for a fish.
They are massive.
Wow.
They're huge. That's just a baby and he's massive.